If you're a non-native English speaker or a beginning writer, you might find yourself writing very simple sentences. Most of what you write is not varied and is not complex and it doesn't come to life. But isn't simple what we're supposed to go for? Isn't this Hemingway's best advice to cut everything, to cut the fat and make sure that your sentences are short and go to the point? Yes and no. What we should be going for isn't simplicity, but variety that is simple. We don't want to write a half-page sentence, although I've seen one IL doctoral have done it in a very beautiful way. But we also don't want to write paragraphs that consist of 3-word sentences. Hi friends, my name is Mohamed, and in this channel we demystify the writing process and explore tools and habits that makes our writing better. So in this video, I will be talking about what is a sentence, what is a good sentence, and what are the different type of sentences that we can practice so that our writing can get better. Why sentences are important? Because they are the building blocks of writing. Someone would ask, isn't words are the building blocks of writing? I would disagree, because at face value, words only have meaning individually based on what they convey. But once you put them in a group, they do not have a relationship until you put them next to each other in a way that allows you to have meaning. That sounded so confusing. Let me explain. If you take words like off, the, cat, table, and jump, all of these words individually, they have a meaning, but if you put them in the order that I just listed, they don't really have any relationship and the sentence is not a sentence. Now, if you put them in this order, the cat jumped off the table, now you have something else. You have a picture. You have a building block. The question becomes, what is a sentence? And according to Stanley Fish, a sentence is an organization that arranges words in a way, in a very specific way, that gives a meaning that otherwise if you put those same words in any other arrangements, it will not give you the same meaning. I hope that made sense. Then what is a good sentence? And a good sentence is a communication in a thrilling and effective way. What is the difference? One is a structure and the other is using the structure as a vehicle to deliver ideas. Now, when I was in grad school doing my master's in creative writing, I asked the teacher, I want to get better at writing. And he told me you should read The Elements of Style. This is a book that I read in high school, I read in college for English class, and now is recommended to me in my master's program. And the advice that you get from Elements of Style is write short sentences, be active, do not use passive voice. But then once you start reading literature, once you start reading novels, you start realizing that most successful authors do not abide by those rules. And even Strunka White, the authors of The Elements of Style, say that once you become a professional writer, you can break all the rules, but in the beginning you have to follow them. And if you read the opening of Billy Bat Gay by E.L. Doctorow, you will realize that a half-a-page sentence can literally be a portrait of a scene. And after reading such sentence, you realize that examples of good long sentences in whatever style they are written in, you can learn them and adopt them and copy them. So examples of good sentences is what makes you a better writer, not rules that you should follow blindly. Now I want to talk about the different style of sentences or types, and I want to cover two: the subordinate style and the additive style. I'm not saying that these are the only style that exist, but these are styles that living in New York City, this is what happens. I'm not saying that these are the only styles that exist. There is an infinite number of styles out there. The goal is to study both styles in order for us to get a clear picture of how to study sentences in a way where we can practice them and then include them in our own writing. And this study is not the study of the content, it's the study of the structure itself, so that when you are ready to practice it, when you are ready to use it, you just plug in your ideas into the structure that you already dissected, so that you can turn it into a vehicle that you can deliver meaning. I hope I haven't lost you yet, because I know I'm using a lot of technical terms, and I just want you to focus on the examples so that you can be able to use them in your own writing. So let's talk about the subordinate style, which you can use when you are making hard claims, you want to sound very authoritative, and you want to sound artistic and writerly. A lot of proverbs are written in this style. So for example, 1 apple a day makes the doctor go away. So there's a relationship between clause number 1 and clause number 1. You eat an apple a day, it keeps the doctor away. Direct relationship. Another example is because she was raining, she decided to stay indoors. So there's a cause and effect. Because it was raining outside, she stayed indoors, and so you get this direct relationship between the two clauses. And nobody wants to write sentences like that all the time, where you are writing 2-part sentences separated by a comma that have direct relationship, because it makes the reader realize the writer is writing. It sort of takes the reader out of the page. But then look at very good writers who bury that subordinate subordinate style in their sentences so that they can sound authoritative but without taking you out of the page. And the example I want to use is from Henry James. When the porter's wife, she used to answer the house bell, announced, "A gentleman with a lady, sir. I had, as I often had in those days, for the wish was a father to the thought, an immediate vision of sitters." Now later on we find out in the story that the main character is a painter, and sitters here is referring to the people that sit in front of painters to be drawn. But what I want you to focus on is the part of the sentence that has the authority, that have the subordinate cause and effect type of sound. For the wish is father to the thought. It sounds like a proverb, and if you start a sentence like that in the middle of a story, then it sort of takes the reader off the page because they're like, all right, now you're just being fancy. But because it's buried between two clauses, one pushes us far to the back, and one that sort of centers us back into the presence, where he says an immediate vision of sitters, which is something that he's imagining right now. Then the proverb part is perceived as just a golden nugget of wisdom, and it doesn't sound intrusive or this like highly artistic way to show or flex your own writing muscles to the reader. Let's take another example where we see how the subordinate style, because of the relationships that it creates between clauses, it pushes the descriptions far and beyond what it would otherwise be. Take a sentence like, "The tranquility of the garden reminded me of heaven," and add a cause and effect subordinate style magic to it and see how it sounds. With a gentle breeze blowing through the trees, the garden became a tranquil heaven. Is the second example longer? Yes. Is it more complicated? No. Does it give more depth and motion to the description? Absolutely. The relationship between the breeze and the garden is almost magical. The breeze turns the garden into a heaven, a tranquil heaven. I love the subordinate style, and it's very hard to do. But once you notice it in a book that you are reading and take down that sentence and write it and start recreating it, then you can never unsee it again. Now let's talk about the additive style. This one does not focus on relationships. It focuses more on making a list that does not have a direct relationship, but it sort of moves the writing forward. This is more a less artistic, more flowy, more freely, and more casual. Let's take an example. I read On the Origin of Species, and I passed all my courses and began dating Mark. Now, is there a direct relationship between reading The Origin of Species, but passing all the courses, and dating Mark? Not really, but then the sentence is flowy and it shows you that the author or the character or even the sort of tone of the book is very light. Let's take another example, and this is from the opening of The Catcher and the Rye. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born, and what my lousy childhood was like, and how my parents were occupied and all before they had me, and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. But I do not feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. Now, the list of events that are in the sentence are the events themselves that the author trying to avoid speaking about. But what he successfully does sort of adapt this teenager-like voice that speaks very lousy, but then a hidden sophisticated author voice that's able to deny access to information while giving information at the same time. Now, if you're this far of watching the video, you're probably a little bit confused, or maybe confused and you think this is a video that wasted your time, and I apologize for that. But the reason it's hard is because I'm not giving you rules. It's not the elements of style where I tell you cut, or write short sentences, avoid passive voice, eliminate adjectives. It's not that. It's more like looking at examples, seeing what works, and trying to adopt them. Now, you might be wondering, can I mix and match styles? Can I write in the same story, the different styles? And the answer is no. There is no rules when it comes to writing. And it's just based on what you're trying to communicate. Again, taking sentences as vehicles to deliver ideas. But then how to actually practice those sentences? And here's what I've done. I would take a sentence and do three things. First, ask myself, why does this sentence work? Then break it down into different parts, and then plug in my own ideas to each part of the sentence to recreate it. And if you do that over and over again with multiple sentences, writing in that style will become second nature. Let me give you an example. Let's take a sentence like, with a gentle breeze blowing through the tree, the garden became a tranquil heaven. Now, the sentence starts with, and I think that's the powerful piece of it because it already starts with the relationship before it introduces the clauses, and is made of two simple parts that one transforms the other, one causes the other. So after a few attempts, I managed to write this, which is a very bad attempt, but then one that gets me closer to copying the structure. With the sunlight casting through the window and landing on her face, Her eyes lighted with a angelic glow. Now, is that as good as the original? Not really, but then it's just a practice for me to repeat over and over again for it to become, like I said before, second nature. That's it for this video, and I hope you learn something new and become, just like there are people we call bird watchers, we become sentence watchers, people who read for pleasure, but also to see how sentences make us feel and then steal them. In the meantime, thank you for watching and keep writing.